What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another critter format video, and this one's going to be a bit spookier than normal. Now, I know that Halloween is coming past this year, but I figure we're close enough to the day itself to focus on one of the spookiest decks in critter format, which revolves around Pumpking, the King of Ghosts, and Castle of Dark Illusions to buff zombie monsters. Now, is this deck very good? Probably not. Is it funny? Absolutely. And so I figured, given it's that time of year, I'd put a spotlight on the deck a little bit, or at least my version of the deck here, and show off its pros and cons. But before we dive into the deck breakdown, if you enjoy these sorts of videos covering old formats like Critter format and Kaiba format, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really would help out a lot. I had the goal of reaching 200 subscribers in the month of October, and we almost made it. So it would be really cool at the start of November to reach that milestone. It would really mean a lot to me. And also, if you enjoy this video, please be sure to give it a like. Now that that's out of the way, let's dive in to Pumpking. So Pumpking, the King of Ghosts, is a level 6 zombie type monster with 1800 attack, 2000 defense. And it has a bit of a weird effect. While Castle of Dark Illusions is face up on the field, it gains 100 attack and defense, and then it gains an additional 100 attack and defense during each of your next 4 standby phases. So while it starts out at a pretty weak attack value, it can cap out at 2300 attack, which is not the worst thing in the world if you've got Castle of Dark Illusions up and you're able to maintain it on the field. In addition, Castle of Dark Illusions itself has an effect that can buff the attack and defense of zombie-type monsters. When it's flipped up, all zombie-type monsters gain 200 attack and defense, and then during each of your next 4 standby phases, each of those zombie-type monsters gains 200 more attack and defense. And these effects last as long as it's face up on the field. This may seem pretty decent, but unfortunately it has a couple flaws. Castle of Dark Illusions buff only works on zombie-type monsters that are actually on the field when it's flipped up. So you can't do something like set Castle of Dark Illusions on an empty board state, have your opponent attack into it, and then summon out like a dragon zombie next turn to hopefully get the buff. No, it only works with dragon zombies, pumpkins, and all the other zombies we have in our deck that are on the field when it's flipped up, which means that oftentimes you'll have to flip this thing up yourself, which makes it a bit vulnerable because it has a very low attack value of 920. All this makes it so that its effect likely isn't to go off, so we can kind of treat this as basically a defender. And if you'll notice, Pumpkin is also kind of a defender with 2000 defense. So given that we're playing a fair amount of defenders in the deck as our, main featured cards here, I figured that we'd go with a bit of a hand control strategy with Robin Goblin, hopefully maybe baiting our opponent into attacking into our strong defense monsters and having to discard a card for it. In addition, Robin Goblin fits the kind of spooky theme because, look at this thing. It's a goblin. Goblins are Halloween-y as well, so I figured it fits the deck pretty well. But Robin Goblin alone isn't enough to make this deck tick, I don't think. So I also added in a bit of a soul control package, putting in 3 soul exchanges. Playing Pumpkin as a level 6 monster, one of the best ways to get it out consistently is by tributing off your opponent's monsters with soul exchanges and change of heart. In addition, there is another tribute zombie monster in this set in the form of Shadow Ghoul. So I figured while we're going all in on zombies, might as well play this too. Since we are playing the soul exchange package, we're also playing 3 Thunder Dragon, which can be very good at keeping your soul exchanges online. Now, obviously, you'd prefer to summon out a monster like Shadow Ghoul or Pumpkin, which are a bit beefier than the Thunder Dragons. But having these Thunder Dragons thins down your deck a bit and also ensures that you'll have removal with the soul exchanges. So I think they're very necessary to the deck. Moving on from those, we of course have the 2 recruiters, Sangan and Witch, maxed out. Neither of these can search out Pumpkin, unfortunately, but they can search out pretty much every other card in the deck. We just gotta hope that we hard draw the Pumpkin. In addition, as I mentioned before, we're going all in on zombies, so we're playing the level 4 or lower zombie type monster with the highest attack, which is Dragon Zombie at 1600. Not the best, but not terrible. It can beat over pretty much everything except for Lodgin, 7-colored fish, or if your opponent's playing like Jiraigumos and Dark Elves. And honestly, that can be good enough in most cases. We're also playing 3 Lodgin. It's a fiend that's kind of Halloweenish, and it's just too good of a card to pass up. And we're playing a Giant Soldier of Stone just as one more defensive wall to stall for a bit to draw into like our Soul Exchange combos, and also to pair with Robin Goblin, just like the Castle of Dark Illusions and Pumpkins do. For the spell cards, we've got Change of Heart, which goes very well with our Soul Exchange package, but can also just be used as a power card in general. We have a Dark Hole, a Pot of Greed, Raigeki, Monster Reborn, the Power 5 limited spells, all very good. We have 2 heavies because we really need our monsters to be able to stick the landing and attack in, because our deck is pretty fragile. And we've also got 2 Swords of Revealing Light to buy us some time while we're drawing into our bricks. For the traps, we have a Mirror Force, crazy card if you're able to pull it off, 2 Robin Goblin as I mentioned before, 3 Trap Hold act as removal during our opponent's turn, and 3 Waboku, which have an added benefit in this deck given that Pumpkin has 1800 attack. Oftentimes you'll need to protect it from your opponent's 1800 beaters, and Waboku can be a great way to do that. For the side deck, we can side into a bit of a better strategy, a couple different better strategies actually. We have a Cannon Soldier, 3 Jiraigumo, 3 7-colored fish. These are if we want to get a bit more aggressive, maybe side out the Dragon Zombies and a bit of our Soul Control package just for bigger guys. Jiraigumos can also pair extremely well with Robin Goblin, as being at 2200 they can get over anything that your opponent brings out and potentially deal damage to them. We're also playing 2 Magician of Faith, 3 Masked Sorcerer if we want to go a bit more controlling after game 1. And we're also playing 3 Fisher if we feel like we need more removal. And that's my build of the deck. I know that other people have made plenty of Pumpkin builds because Pumpkin is such an iconic card, but this is what I've settled on. Let's see if the Halloween spirit can guide us to victory playing this deck. We've got a game against Deleted YGO, who is a very good player in the format. I think this is the first time that I featured them on the channel, although I could be wrong. They could have actually been on in the early days testing before even Yugi Kaiba with other formats. But they're a very good player, so happy to have them on the channel for this very, very spooky duel. We won the rock, paper, scissors, so we're going to get to go first here. And let's see what we're starting out with. Well, we've got Thunder Dragon, so we can thin down our deck a bit, which is very nice. And we've also got Soul Exchange, which can just remove an opponent's monster, so that's not bad. Unfortunately, we've got Dragon Zombie and Shadow Ghoul as well. Shadow Ghoul is a good card to pair with Soul Exchange, but it's better in the late game when you have more monsters in graveyard. We can set a Dragon Zombie, set Waboku, and just pass. Dragon Zombie dies, and we get a monster engraved to pair with Shadow Ghoul, bring it up to 1700. But that's honestly not the best. Oh, we didn't draw for turn. That is a very good point. Yeah, we didn't draw for turn. We should have drawn for turn, but the Thunder Dragon does complicate the deck ordering. Thunder Dragon wasn't the top card of my deck when I searched for the other Thunder Dragons, so it shouldn't matter if I just draw now. And luckily Deleted YGO is very forgiving here and allows me to draw. So we're just going to set the Waboku and pass. This might not be the best play. If they've got like a Masked Sorcerer or a White Magical Hat, we may be forced to fire it just right away. But if they do bring out those in attack position, we can bring out a Dragon Zombie potentially to try and attack over it. So we are okay with this play. They're just going to bring out a Dark Elf, and it looks like they're on a bit of a beatdown strategy. So they're going to attack him with the Dark Elf. We're going to just let that go through. We're saving the Waboku for more important moments. And they're just going to set one and pass. We talk in the side here about how Dark Elf is maybe not the best card in the world in these sorts of decks. Muka Muka could potentially be a better inclusion if you're building those sorts of beatdown decks. But it's pretty good here because we can't actually get through it. So we're just going to set a Dragon Zombie, set Robin Goblin. We might be getting a bit baited here if that set is a heavy. But if it is a heavy, we've got Woboku to chain to it. So it's not the worst thing in the world. And if the Dragon Zombie dies, it will be another monster in the grave for Shadow Ghoul. So there's that. They're going to bring out a 7-colored fish, attack into the Dragon Zombie. We're just going to let it die. And they see what we're on now and have a very fun reaction to it. You know, we got to go spooky for the spooky season, no matter how jank it is. They're just going to set another pass back to us. That trap hole came a little bit too late. But we are going to soul exchange, getting rid of the Dark Elf, trying to summon out a Shadow Ghoul because it is at 1800 now. So that is the same amount as 7-colored fish. But unfortunately, they do have a trap hole to get rid of that. We're just going to set trap hole of our own. Because we figure they likely don't have heavy at this point, or else they would have fired it earlier. And they also committed a lot to the board. We could be getting a bit baited here, but we've got the Woboku in a worst case scenario, I guess. They're just going to attack in for 18. We're going to let that go through. Nothing we can really do about that. They're going to set 2 in the back row and pass back to us. And we draw the best card in our deck, Pumpking, the King of Ghosts. Unfortunately, it's not very good right now. We will be forced to Woboku next turn, basically. We're just going to pass back to them, and they're going to attack in. And I think we do have to Woboku, because if they manage to connect and then just summon out a Cannon Soldier, it's all over. So we do Woboku that, keeping ourselves out of Cannon Soldier range. They're going to bring out a Gumo. We're just going to trap hole it, because we don't really have another way to deal with it. And then pass back to them. Change of Heart is one of the best draws we could have gotten here. We're going to Change of Heart their 7-colored fish and attack in. This may be a bit greedy if they have something like Mirror Force, then we get punished for this. But if they don't, we can activate Robin Goblin and potentially get in and rip a card from their hand, which would be very nice. So they're going to think about this, which means that they probably have something here. And they are going to actually Solemn the Robin Goblin, which is a big, big thing for us because we've got another Robin Goblin in hand for later. But this will actually drop them down to 1200 because they have to Robin Goblin before the damage goes through. So they're going to drop down to 1200, which is not very much. And we could potentially be able to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat here. And we are going to tribute set the Pumpkin and then set a Robin Goblin and pass back to them. They're going to activate Swords, flip up the Pumpkin, and pass back to us. Unfortunately, we can't really do anything under Swords, so we're just going to pass back to them. This is a bit risky. If they have a Fisher and a Jirai Gumo, then that'll be pretty bad for us. But if they don't, you know, we're still in it. So, you know, they got to find a way to out the Pumpkin. Let's see how they do it. They're just going to set one and pass. Heavy's pretty good. We could just heavy here. Try and go for game. If they don't have Woboku, that's pretty good for us. And we figure that they probably don't have Woboku because if they had Woboku, they would have just fired it when we activated Robin Goblin instead of Solemning the Robin Goblin. So we're going to think about it a bit, and we're just going to activate the heavy, get rid of their entire board, bring out a Lodgin, switch the Pumpkin to attack, and get in. Hopefully for game, we're going to attack with the Lodgin first, so that way we can kill with the Pumpkin. And there it is. Pumpkin, best card in the format by a long shot. I think that game proved it. I mean, when it's Halloween, you can't defeat Pumpkin. It's just too good. The spooky spirit flows through it, and it's just too strong. Now, for game 2, we do actually make some changes, siding in some Jirai Gumos instead of the Dragon Zombies because they're on a bit more of a beatdown strategy. So we need to play big beaters of our own. But besides that, we keep the deck the same. And we hope that Pumpkin can carry us to victory again. We draw Pumpkin in the opening hand, and we're feeling pretty good. This is one of the best hands this deck can produce, I think. We've got a Soul Exchange to pair with the Pumpkin. We've got Robin Goblin. We've got Pot of Greed. We've got a standard beater. You know, this is just great. They're going to do a Thunder Dragon of their own. Get 2 to hand. And bring out a 7-colored fish. Set 1 and pass. We're just going to Pot of Greed here. Those are some pretty great draws. And we're going to think about this. We could just bring out the Lodgin and try and crash. We could set the Witch, set a Mirror Force maybe. There are a couple options. We could also Soul Exchange their monsters, set a Pumpkin. And it looks like that is what we're going to do here. We know that 2 of their monsters in hand are Thunder Dragons, so we don't feel too bad about doing that. And we're going to set the Robin Goblin, pass back to them. If they attack into our set here, then we can activate Robin Goblin, hopefully snipe a card out of their hand. Unfortunately, it looks like they're on Soul Exchange as well, so they'll be able to tribute set a monster of their own. We figure that's likely a Thunder Dragon, so we could just bring out Lodgin and try and hit over it. And that is what we're going to try to do. And they will activate Uboku, so they'll be able to protect their Thunder Dragon. And then main 2, we are going to set a Mirror Force, figuring that they committed a lot of back row to the field, so it's unlikely that they're going to have a heavy here. We might get punished by this, and we do, because they made the big brain play of setting Heavy Storm first thing to bait us into overcommitting with our back row. And these are 2 big hits here, so kind of unfortunate. And they're going to bring out a 7-card fish attack into our Lodgin. We're going to declare the effect of Lodgin and send it to the graveyard. The spooky effect that only activates on Halloween. And they're just going to set one and pass. And this is pretty rough for us. We're just going to set the Witch, set the Swords. If we get baited into losing to a Heavy again, we're honestly okay losing Swords because the Swords would die to the Heavy anyways. So we're not too worried about that. They're going to attack into our set. We're going to Witch, search out a Lodgin here. And they'll pass back to us. Heavy is a kind of rough draw here. If we hadn't set the Swords, we could have just heavied and then brought out Lodgin, hopefully gotten over the Thunder Dragon. Unfortunately, we did not, and we get punished for it. They will Solemn our Lodgin, and we're just going to activate Swords and pass back. We could have revived like our Pumpkin to just get in a bit more damage, clear the Thunder Dragon. But we choose not to, and they will heavy here, bring out a Witch, and attack in for some major damage. It's kind of rough. They're going to set one, pass back. And we have a choice here. We could heavy their back row and then Reborn and try and attack in. But I think we're going to save the heavy for another time. We're instead just going to activate Reborn here and try and bring back Pumpkin. If they have like a Solemn or a way to stop this, we can always set a Castle of Dark Illusions, which they can't get over given their board. And it is Solemn, but they drop down by 2,000. So now they're at 2,000 life points. We don't get our Pumpkin back, unfortunately, but we will be able to set this Defender here, set a heavy to try and bait them into committing more, and pass back to them. They're going to Pot of Greed, draw 2. And they're going to tribute the Witch to bring out another Thunder Dragon. Trigger the Witch to add a monster to hand, which is really neat. They get a Jirai Gumo to be able to beat over whatever defenders we have. And they are going to attack into the Castle of Dark Illusions. They should have taken 330 there, but it does not matter. 20 life points is not going to make the difference in this game. And they'll set one and pass. And Lodgin's very good. So we are just going to heavy away at that Mirror Force that they had set. So glad we, had the heavy for the Mirror Force. And then we're going to attack in to the Thunder Dragon. And they will be able to bring out Jirai Gumo next turn, but hopefully that won't be enough to kill us because they won't be able to clear both of our monsters with just Jirai Gumo. They're going to Fisher away our Castle of Dark Illusions, and that's kind of rough because now they are able to clear our Lodgin. But they can't kill us yet, so we're still feeling okay. But then they activate Monster Reborn. And now they're able to bring the best monster in the game to their side of the field. Pumpkin, the King of Ghosts. And that's just the end of the game because 400 from the Jirai Gumo attacking over the Lodgin. 1600 from Thunder Dragon. And then the 1800 from Pumpkin to finish it off. So Pumpkin just too strong. It has been the deciding factor. in each game that we've played in this match so far. Whoever controls Pumpkin controls the game, is what we've determined. So game 3, we've got to prioritize getting Pumpkin on our side of the field, protected, and able to just win. So we are going to keep the deck the same after siding. Still got the Jiragumos in place of the Dragon Zombies, but everything else the same. And we are going to be able to go first here because we lost that second game. This is not a terrible hand. We can set a Sangan, set a Trap Hole maybe, and pass back to them. And we're just going to do that. They're going to Thunder Dragon, get 2 Thunder Dragons. Please Soul Exchange the Sangan. That would be very, very good for us. They're just going to Heavy Storm, so we lose the Trap Hole, unfortunately. And they're going to bring out Gumo. Just go very aggressive. And they call it wrong, so they will lose half their life points, and we'll be able to get a Witch to hand. If we can just keep up defensive recruiters in a wall, so that way they keep having to attack with Jiraiya and potentially having their life points each time, we're going to feel pretty good about that. So they're just going to set one pass back to us. We draw Jiraiya of our own, but there's no real reason to bring it out to crash yet. Especially because we have Mirror Force to potentially clear away their Jiraiya if we want to do it that way. They're going to bring out a Lodgin, and this is actually Prime Mirror Force material right here. They attack with the Jiraiya first, so they may have their life points anyways, and it may just be the end of the game coming up here. They call Tails, and it is Tails, so they are able to keep their 4,000 life points. Set one pass back to us. We're just going to bring out a Jiraiya and try and get in here for a lot of damage. We're not going to Reborn in case they have a Mirror Force. We don't want to play into that. We'll save it for later. And our attacks get through, so maybe we should have Reborn and just gone for it. We call heads, and we do actually call heads correct, so we will preserve our life total. We're feeling pretty good about that. We're going to set a Waboku and just pass back to them. But I think we're in a really commanding position here. They're going to bring out a Lodgin and attack into the Witch. They probably have a Fisher in hand to clear the Gumo afterwards. But we're just going to let this go through and see what happens. We're going to Witch to search out a Sangan. And maintain. Oh, it looks like they don't have a Fisher in hand. So we will be able to keep the Gumo on field. We're just going to bring out a Sangan, and they're going to Solemn Judgment that. Which means that they probably have a way to protect themselves in battle from the Gumo, but maybe not. We'll see. We're just going to attack in. If they've got a Waboku or something, that's pretty rough. But if they don't, we're feeling pretty good. We have Waboku here. We have Reborn to bring back what we need to next turn. Unfortunately, no Cannon Soldiers anywhere, but, I think we're still doing pretty good. We call it wrong, unfortunately, which drops us down to a pretty low amount, but, oh, it looks like that was just heavy. So it looks like they didn't have a way to deal with it, but, it was game either way, so they just went for the Solemn. But that was a good game. Looks like they had Cannon Soldier. We just show each other off what we've got. They had Cannon Soldier and just 2 Thunder Dragons left. And we had a pretty stacked hand. So I thought that was a really fun match to show off. I went into it expecting to just lose automatically and expecting that Pumpkin would be completely useless the entire game. Just sort of a funny joke deck. But Pumpkin actually performed. We were able to bring it out off of a Change of Heart. And it was able to attack in for game when our opponent just wasn't able to draw enough monsters to contest it. So what does this mean for the Pumpkin deck? Do I think that it is a tier 1 meta threat? No. I think the Pumpkin is, interestingly enough, the best tribute wall in the format. So if you're planning on making like a soul control deck that's more focused on stalling, Pumpkin is actually, unironically, a good card to include. Because unlike Yakuten no Megami, it can't be debuffed by things like Yami. And it also does have an effect. Will that effect ever come up? Probably not. But it could potentially come up in a game. And so might as well take advantage of that if you can. So in a more defensive strategy, I think Pumpkin does have its place. But I think the whole Castle of Dark Illusions Pumpkin build is not very good at all. You know, the buffs on Castle of Dark Illusion is way too hard to actually pull off and make meaningful because it actually takes, you know, a whole turn to get the Dragon Zombie over Lodgin because when it's first flipped up, you know, it'll gain 200 attack, but then you need to go through a standby phase to actually buff it up to 2000. And if an opponent's got a Lodgin on their field, they're not going to attack into your set monster. They're going to attack into your Dragon Zombie if you've got that on the field. So I think the Castle of Dark Illusions buff play is not very good at all. I think that zombies like Shadow Ghoul also aren't very good. Maybe in a deck dedicated to Shadow Ghoul, it could have a place. But I think in general, they're just better offensive options than this card. And again, like with the Dragon Zombies, it's likely not going to be able to get Castle of Dark Illusions buff. So I think that this zombie deck is just pretty bad overall. I think that it's a hodgepodge of a bunch of different strategies. That being said, it is a very fun sort of meme deck that you can play for the spooky season. And as shown here, you know, it can win games, you know. Soul Exchange is powerful. Robin Goblin is powerful. Just 1800 attack points is a good attack threshold. So if you do manage to bring out Pumpkin, it can stick around for a bit. And if you side in more aggressive beaters like Jirai Gumo, it can get even better. So definitely try out the deck if it's something that appeals to you. It's very fun if you manage to actually bring out Pumpkin or pull off some of the deck's combos. But don't expect it to win you any tournaments anytime soon. But I hope you enjoyed this video as always. Until next time, I've been Ben with YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.